before you even acquired Appletree and started rolling up, you've gone through a few acquisitions. So where'd you start?
I heard about people that buy businesses, and I heard about search funds, and I was like, what if I bought an accounting firm?
What was your background early on? Because I know it wasn't accounting.
I did door-to-door sales to pay my way through college.
When you came in, what was one of the biggest surprises? I think there's probably a lot of archaic things that you've seen in just running these businesses.
It's been harder than I thought to run a firm and grow it, but it's also, there's more opportunity than I thought.
How much of your time do you spend, and from a background perspective, do you have on the tax side of things? Or do you pretty much stay out of tax side of the business?
My team laughed at me originally because, like the first few sales, like we'd have a sales sheet and it's like kind of a handoff sheet. And I would write like in any type, I'd write like LLC. And they're like, Patrick, that doesn't tell us shit. Like,
You're still working a job, maybe you're in the middle of a career, you got a family to feed, whatever it is. What did that progression look like?
I just think you need to have a lot of and look at a lot of and keep moving, because it's such a marathon.
Episode 10 of Roads and Riches. Today we have on Patrick Dichter, the owner of Appletree Business Services. Appletree is an accounting firm based out of New Hampshire, and Patrick has a totally different path into the accounting industry than I do. I would say, very untraditional. Going to have a lot of fun talking about that today. He is what's called an entrepreneur through acquisition, ETA, super popular term being thrown around the internet nowadays. Without further ado, let's get into it. Hope you enjoy it. Here's the pod. All right, man. And we're live. Dude, thanks for joining.
Good to be here. Good to see you, Pablo.
Yeah, likewise. We are obviously in the same industry. You run an accounting practice as well. Your path into the accounting world is so different than mine. Probably, I would say, arguably one of the most untraditional. So your perspective is going to be, I think, totally different than mine, which I think makes this a lot of fun. Why don't we start with before you even started Appletree or acquired Appletree and started rolling up, you've gone through a few acquisitions, and we'll get into that a little bit. But what was your background early on? Because I know it wasn't accounting. So where'd you start?
Yeah, I didn't think I'd be here, but at the end of the day, I've always loved numbers. I've always loved small business. So you'll kind of hear those themes throughout. But undergrad, I studied international business. I got my MBA. During my time in undergrad, I did door-to-door sales to pay my way through college. And then after that, I spent 7 years at a digital marketing startup that helped small business. And I loved serving those clients and had a really good run there. And then I spent 3 years doing small business advising and consulting. And we were trying to help people run their business better and grow it and run it smarter. And all of them would have terrible bookkeeping. And I was always referring out the bookkeeping, and it was like a game changer to have clean books. And then I heard about people that buy businesses, and I heard about search funds, and I was like, what if I bought an accounting firm? And so the more I explored it, the more excited I got by the idea. There were a lot of similarities to the marketing startup, serving small business that I'd been at, and there were definitely some things that I liked better about an accounting firm. And so ultimately I decided to go for it. I looked for 10 or 11 months to find one, and then I bought one at the end of 2021.
When you did that, were you still working in your digital marketing job or servicing and advising those small businesses while you were on the search?
Yeah.
And what did that progression look like? I feel like there's a lot of people that maybe even if you have a side hustle or you're in that search phase, right? You're still working a job, maybe you're in the middle of a career, got a family to feed, whatever it is. What did that progression look like? And, maybe walk us through, that transition.
Yeah. So I was still working in the consulting role, and then nights, weekends, I'd be looking at listings, reaching out, trying to find deals for sale. And I don't know, there's different schools of thought. Some people say you need to search full time. A lot of people have done it on the side. I just think you need to have a lot of urgency and look at a lot of deals and keep moving, because it's such a marathon. I had a lot fall apart, and, I think I sent 6 or more LOIs. Had one deal that was really close to closing in June, got a few weeks out from close, and then that fell apart. So I had to restart the engine, and I was getting towards the end of the year, it was the fall, and I was like, if I don't find one before the next tax season, it's going to be 6 months, So anyways, ultimately ended up starting to talk to the prior owner of Appletree in September, and then we closed at the end of 2021. So it's a lot of work to search and find a deal, and then you have to go run the firm,
How long has it been since your first acquisition?
It's 2.5 years.
All right. So you've been running an accounting firm for 2.5 years.
Hmm.
What was maybe the biggest like learning curve and hurdle coming into it, right? Like you're not a CPA, you're not an EA, I don't think, right? So like your background, obviously from an accounting
Yeah.
standpoint, probably very strong. You knew numbers well. What was maybe, the biggest learning curve coming into running something in this industry?
I think a couple big surprises were just the people that work in accounting do not like change, right? So that was one big surprise, is just how I had to lead differently and get their buy-in and like move slower. Another big surprise is just how low the bar is, like a small business owner that's like anywhere from 250K revenue to like 5 million in revenue is just so underserved, and they have terrible books, or they've had bad accounting experiences, or you see some of the other tax work that's done out there, and so the bar is pretty low. I think the other big surprise was just like how much time we spend corralling clients and chasing clients. Like it's crazy. Just I meet some really sharp people and some people that are really organized, and we still have to just like remind them 7 times and like threaten their lives to get a piece of information out of them. It's wild. So those would be the biggest, I guess, surprises in terms of running the firm.
Yeah, it's funny with, even with my partners and everything when we talk about the business, whenever we have a prospecting call, we have maybe a new lead, whatever it is, it usually only takes us like maybe one, maybe two conversations before like, how somebody's business, like how profitable that business is going to be or how successful it's going to be just by like that first conversation with the owner, where you see like, okay, how engaged are they in this, like how important is this to them, really it shows just in their business. Like roll up the sleeves and you're like, okay, I just have to talk to that person, and I know I don't even need to look at their books, and I can tell you exactly what the outcome is going to be. I want to go back to one of the things that you talked about was you were in marketing and you started your career there. One of the things that I found, so my background obviously very different. I took a traditional CPA route, went the big four, all that. I went into finance, worked at Goldman Sachs for a bit, and when I started doing this, right, and we launched Alpine Mar, one of the things that I thought was like it still is kind of mind blowing to me is the huge community in social media, in X, in LinkedIn. How did you find that? Where, like, what was your, because you've got a voice, you've been able to grow, I think, your reach pretty well and everything. Where did you stumble across it? Because I'm sure you did at some point. And like I said, I'm still kind of like blown away by that. And how much of your marketing background maybe helped you with that?
I've always had dabbled a little bit in like personal branding, like I had a blog like 6, 7 years prior to that, where I just write about like business lessons and life lessons, and I try to post here and there on LinkedIn. But it was really during like quarantine time and COVID when I was like stuck at home and kind of got more into Twitter and stumbled into this whole SMB community on there. And I started to like connect and network with people before I bought the accounting firm. And then after I bought it, I had a few people reach out that were like, hey, will you be, let's talk about accounting services. And it really blew my mind, because I was like, you don't know if we're good or not. Like, I just bought this business. But so part of it was just like grabbing onto the opportunity of like, holy cow, there's this, in a sense, it's free, right? It takes my time, but like if I can be intentional about it and like put good content out there and build my following. And, to this day, it's like half of our new clients come through people that have followed me on Twitter, or referral partners that I met on there. It truly blows my mind how much it's helped us grow the business. And I don't know, in some ways, like that feels like my advantage as an owner, that I'm not an accountant. I can do some other things in like marketing and sales and like lean into my strengths there, even if I'm not going to be like billing out a ton of production.
How much of your time would you say is spent between managing firm and, business development versus, let's say, client work or, billing hours?
I probably spend 30% of my time on like sales, talking to new prospects, maybe another 30% on like running the firm and leading our team leads. And then, the rest is kind of split up between like recruiting comes in waves, and then like reviewing new tech, going to conferences. Yeah. So I'm really wearing the hats around like sales, marketing, hiring, kind of leading the firm.
You had your first acquisition about 2.5 years ago. You've since done, I think, another two or three. What's it like bringing in, let's say, rolling up another firm? Maybe what's your criteria look like also? I'm kind of, I'm a little bit curious about that. And how do you integrate them?
Yeah, it's definitely evolved. I think I bought 3 in the first 12 months, which like sounds crazy, and I don't recommend other people. The second one was a very similar firm in terms of tech stack and type of firm. The third one, we're more tax centric, like the tax person is the lead on the relationship. This other firm was more like CFO centric. even though they did tax. So my criteria now would be we're growing pretty well organically. So it's really got to be worth it to go through all the brain damage of like trying to buy a firm and just paying more, you know? But I'm still looking at potential acquisitions. So my criteria now would be like focused on small businesses, like similar tech stack in terms of like primarily QBO. Maybe hopefully they use UltraTax like we do. You know, they do subscription style billing. They have some staff that would come over, right? I'm not interested in an old school firm or like a tax only firm. It's just not worth paying for that when, you know, we grow by like 6 or 7 thousand in new MRR per month organically. So it's like if I'm going to grow by 6 or 7 grand a month, like why would I go acquire 100K of like underpriced kind of bad systems, you know?
Yeah, I know my view on this has been because we were under contract. We were getting close on a fractional CFO firm, fell out of contract about a month ago or so. We were pretty excited about it, but in our search and we were looking to potentially add something on to what we've got now. My take was why go into why go acquire a tax firm unless there's it seems like the fractional CFO, the bookkeeping firms, right? I'd say that the margins in general are generally a bit better, and I would say from being able to run it a bit less friction in running those types of firms, whereas the tax firms, because you've got so many people that are coming out of the industry that are retiring and everything, I just look at it as like it's a wave of clients that are going to be absorbed by us and new incumbents to the industry, right? That makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah. I mean, I think the right acquisition can catapult you forward. You know, I think if a new if a new person is to build from scratch, like I don't know how long you think, but I would think it probably takes them like 4 or 5 years to get to a million in revenue, maybe more, like a normal average person, right? Or to get to like 2 million in revenue is probably another 4 or 5 years, right? Whereas if you can go buy 500K or $1 million practice, and you shape it over a couple of years and like raise prices, modernize it, it can definitely save you a lot of time. And I think the other thing is if you are building from scratch, it's just exhausting to wear all the hats, of like sales, hiring, systems. So the right acquisition can catapult you forward. But yeah, if you're going to go buy a pure tax firm, you could probably just wait around and like, I don't know how your leads feel, but like so many of our leads are like, my accountant retired or my accountant closed the door. Probably a quarter of our leads say that, when they reach out.
We've gotten a lot of feedback of it's twofold. One has been that they feel that the tax service hasn't been very good or even like
Oh,
competent enough for like what they're looking for, and a lot of them are coming from like these
hmm.
almost like tech type like feel fractional CFO and bookkeeping firms, right? That are like very techy and like where AI integrated and all that, and that's kind of like their pitch. But then they also do the tax service. So we've had quite a few of those come in where you've got these founders that come to us that they're pretty sophisticated. One of them, like most recently, got involved with private equity, sold a partial stake in a business, and was very concerned with a lot of the tax implications that came out of the
Hmm.
tax return, and was looking for better tax representation. So that's been a lot of feedback that we get. The other thing that we've seen a little bit of now has been some larger firms that have come in to acquire some smaller firms. And once they go through the acquisition, these clients are coming to us and they're just like, things were great. All of a sudden the acquisition happened and it's been a disaster. We don't know who's, servicing us and everything. And so we've seen some of that also.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I've heard that a little bit, and I've been on the side of that where one of the acquisitions I did not go very well,
it's
and
hard.
it's hard. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard, especially I mean when you're dealing with people like you said, especially when you have a lot of people that just industry in general or is a bit resistant to
Mhm.
change can be definitely be challenging. How much of your time do you spend and from a background perspective do you have on the tax side of things, or do you pretty much stay out of the tax side of the business?
So I feel like I've learned a lot by being close to it and honestly learning a lot through Twitter and being in the sales process and just hearing client issues that come up. But yeah, I'm not like rolling up my sleeves and like doing tax returns. Honestly, the first year I debated that a lot. Like, should I be prepping some returns or should I go get my EA? And then the time just kind of flew by, and now I'm like at the stage where I'm like, I don't know, it might not be the best use of my time. But my team laughed at me originally because like the first few sales, like we'd have a sales sheet and it's like, okay, tell me about the business. What's the entity type? What's the revenue, kind of a handoff sheet. And I would write like entity type, I'd write like LLC. And they're like, Patrick, that doesn't tell us shit. Like, Is it, an LLC taxed as an S corp? Is an LLC taxed as partnership? Is it, sole prop? And even just those basics of like learning how to clearly communicate entity types. But I've learned how to read a tax return and like the do's and don'ts of like entity selection and like what some tax implications are. But I'm not doing returns, so.
I'm very similar to you. My background is not tax at all, so I've got partners for that I'm able to lead on. They're very sophisticated on the tax front. I like to say to folks that I'm dangerous when it comes to tax, but you don't want dangerous on your tax return. So, um, so I stayed in my lane for sure. All right, so continuing on in just accounting in general, industry specific, right? So you've come into the industry, done some acquisitions and everything. Where do you think the biggest opportunity is for the industry in general? Where do you think it is like when you came in, what was one of the biggest surprises? I think, there's probably a lot of archaic things that you've seen in just running these businesses.
I mean, I think it's been harder than I thought to run a firm and grow it, but it's also, there's more opportunity than I thought. So I think where things are going is today's prospective client wants to know that like you're going to reply to their email and get back to them within a day or two. And they want to know that you like understand their industry or software more than they care if you're down the street, right? Like the dentist in Chicago is fine working with a firm in California or Texas if they know dentistry, right? And they're going to get good service, right? Or I think that's where things are more, clients are more quick to move or select somebody that's more within their industry versus like the local generalist. I also just think there's going to be two types of firms, or there are now. This guy on Twitter was joking that there's like two types of HVAC companies. There's the one that comes with like the really nice truck and the tech is an iPad and you're going to pay through the nose, but you're going to get good service. Or he's like, there's the Chuck in the truck that like it's single owner and like has no branding and he doesn't use a CRM, but like he'll do a pretty good job. It might take him another couple days, but he's going to be like a quarter of the price. I see the same thing happening with this small business tax world. Like there's still going to be the solopreneurs that like probably don't have work papers and like will take whatever bookkeeping and accept it versus like review the bookkeeping. And then there's going to be other firm that like, won't do a tax return unless they also do the bookkeeping so that they trust it and they're going to have work papers and they're going to have like 2 layers of review. I think that's, I don't know, the trend that I see going is there's really like a fragmentation in terms of the type of work that will get done.
How much has the small business environment you think changed over the course of the last few years? Like this is something that I see that I look like, and I don't know if it's because of a lot of the content that I'm consuming, whether it be on X or LinkedIn or whatever, right? Where you have this big SMB community, you have this whole ETA concept, and obviously the silver tsunami, right, that everybody talks about and stuff. So how much do you think the small business landscape has changed, and is from a supply and demand perspective, just in our industry? Obviously we know about the supply of accountants and everything, but is the demand also going to continue to just grow because of so many new folks that are really interested in building something for themselves?
Yeah, I think the younger business owners, they're a little dangerous in terms of they're consuming info and they hear about like tax strategies online. And then they'll go ask their tax pro and they're like, why do I have to bring this to you? And they might get frustrated. So I think you have to just accept that that's going to go on. And on the tax front, try to be proactive. I think they also tend to be more tech forward and like want to DIY some things like bookkeeping, so you have to really convey the value there in terms of like them doing QuickBooks online by themselves is not usually the best approach, and
Usually cost them a lot more at tax time.
yeah, totally. But I think at the end of the day, like there's more than enough work for all of us if you use tech a little bit. And I think the other thing is just the Amazon effect, right? Like they are used to like clicking two buttons and having something delivered to their house, and like they expect every other service provider to like be close to that, right? So like you got to make it easy to do business with you and send files and communicate. And I think if you do that, like you'll have plenty of clients, even if it's a younger business owner. And for our team, like I think more often they appreciate them because they tend to be a little bit more responsive and easier to work with than like the old school owner that like won't give us online banking access.
Yeah. You guys have started doing transaction advisory work too, right? Some quality of earnings for some small acquisitions, right?
Yeah.
And what's it been like growing? It's really a new service line, I think, that you guys are adding on, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. It's been fun. I think it felt like a natural extension because I was talking to a lot of people all the time who were like wanting to buy a business and like offering them advice and kind of helping them look at deals. And then they would go do quality of earnings with somebody else and then hopefully use us for accounting and tax post close. So we started offering it because people are asking. And the other big thing was we have a new team member who's really good at it. And also just saw a gap in the marketplace. There's some QOV providers that are charging like 20 to 40K for a business purchase that's like 1 to 4 million. And that can just add up really quick, right? Or get expensive for somebody who is self-funded. So we're pricing it for 5 to 15K. And the word we're trying to use is pragmatic. Like we know what to look for. The guy Devin that does these, he's bought businesses himself. Like he was a banker and then he bought a bunch of businesses and ran them, sold them. He still owns another business. And so he knows what it's like to go sign on the line for an SBA loan, and he knows what it's like to be an operator. And so we know what things to look out for and like what's worth, negotiating on and like what you can live with to get a deal done. So it's been fun. It's been a reminder, like we have all these leads coming in for it and then deals just die, like we'll have like, I don't know, 8 to 10 new QOV calls in a month, probably maybe more than that, maybe like 15, 20 QOV calls per month, and like 2 of those will get to LOI stage. So it just reminds me of just like how many deals fall apart and like don't get under contract, unfortunately. So
Yeah, for sure. So, by the way, are you guys all like digital cloud first, like team, or are you guys going to an office? Are you guys do you still have the team kind of together and everything?
it's half and half. So we have an office in New Hampshire. It's like 40 minutes north of Boston, and half the team is there. They can work from home if they want. They probably come into the office 2 days a week, and then the other half of our team is distributed. So we have people in Florida, Texas, Oklahoma. I'm torn on office, man. I really am. Like, I worked remote with my last 2 companies, and I was like, I'm going to make this totally remote. And then I've just had so many tax pros that I hired didn't work out. But the ones that we hired where they were like near the office, like it just was like night and day in terms of like how quickly they hit the ground running and like their training and culture. So I don't know what I'll do in the future, but yeah, even if I hire them remotely, like we fly them in twice a year for a couple of meetings. So I don't know. What do you guys have office, or you're all remote?
No, we're all remote. I'll say that so we're based out of South Florida. We've got somebody on our tax team that actually works out of we work in Brickell down in Miami, and that has been an awesome client magnet. I mean, the number of people that you meet in the co-working spaces, yeah, has been great. Some startup founders and other just businesses that are working out of there, and that's been fantastic. But yeah, we're all spread out, all remote. We're all pretty much all throughout either Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach area, and cover this area. So hopefully there'll be some more growth into maybe some other areas of the country. I mean, we have clients, I would say, all around the country. We probably have clients in about 38 states or so. We have quite a few international, but yeah, it's we are completely digital first, cloud firm, but there is some.
You get together in person?
We do. There's something so important about building, I think, culture around, team. I played college baseball. I played baseball for a long time. And I think that the team environment is so important, and building that culture is very, very important. And so it's funny. I was actually on a board meeting call yesterday. I joined my alma mater's a business school board, and yeah, it was interesting hearing a lot of the issues that they're facing just broadly across like higher education. And a big part of it is even them trying to figure out, and really it sounds like more so than anything, see the signs of how important it is to really try to get folks back into the classrooms, onto campus, rather than the remote stuff. I'm with you. I was torn on it for a while, and I do think maybe the right answer is the happy medium and everything, but from a culture standpoint and getting people together, I think there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah. I mean, the thing I can't fight though is like when I throw up an ad that we're hiring, like I get like 10 resumes over 2 weeks. And then when I throw it up and it says remote role,
Yeah.
work from home, I get 300 resumes in 2 days. So in some ways it's almost like you have to go where the applicants are and then like make the investment to get people together in person.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, especially for our industry right now, I mean, just given the number of folks that are, in accounting, and you need competent, people that are motivated, that have the skill set to be able to do, what we do. So what's the future look like for Appletree? You got more organic growth, you continuing to search. I mean, what does the next, 5 years look like for you?
So my goal from the start was to get to 5 million in revenue within 5 years. So the first firm that I bought was doing 1.2 million, and we're a little bit ahead of schedule on that. We'll probably do like 3.4 million this year. This will be my third calendar year. So I still have the blinders on to like get to 5 million within the next couple of years, and then I'll kind of come up for air. My original thought was get the firm to 5 million top line, hopefully 20% cash flow, and then try to buy other types of small businesses, and the accounting firm would be like the mothership, the platform, that would help us like, give us a good sense of what's worth buying, and then we could do the accounting for the other firms. I don't know if I'll still want to do that because I know just how hard this is, or if I just want to like own one business, keep growing it, and then invest in other people who are buying businesses. So time will tell, but the next couple of years, I'm still just focused on like getting to 5 million top line.
Have you come across, from the businesses that you guys service, some of the owners that you guys work with, have you come across any like really ripe opportunities that you're just like, oh man, that's such a good idea, or like, oh, I want to get involved in that?
Yeah, totally. That was part of my original thought, is that, we'd be the first ones to find out if they want to sell. And it's already happened, like organically. Like we have this really cool B2B niche client that like provides certain industries for hotels that like you never would have thought. One day she was like, yeah, I think we want to sell in a few years, but like, who would want to buy this thing? And I was like, I do.
Let me tell you.
I know 5,000 weirdos on Twitter that would like, make you an offer tomorrow. So yeah, that's happened organically. And I'm sure if we like, if we were more intentional about it, there would be even more opportunities. But yeah.
All right, man. Well, Patrick, I appreciate you joining, sharing some of your journey and everything. Looking forward to, continuing to see it and hear about it on Twitter and everything on social. And, hopefully we'll do this again in a few years, see where you're at.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me. And it's awesome to hear how you guys are building your firm as well. So we'll be in touch soon.
Awesome. See you, Patrick.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Roads and Riches podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please consider liking, subscribing, commenting. Let us know how we're doing. And if you're an individual or a business that's in need of accounting services, maybe you're in the market for a new CPA, whether it be tax, accounting, fractional CFO services for your business, or transaction advisory services if you're contemplating a transaction, you should consider using Alpine Mar, the CPA firm that's redefining the accounting industry. You can head on over to alpinemar.com or roadsandriches.com to learn more about us and find a contact form to get in touch. Find out if we can be a good fit for you. We'll see you next time on the Roads and Riches pod.